everyone, my name is Holden Hardman. Thank you so much for joining me again for another video. Apologies in advance, I have been switching around my office to make it the new baby room. I've got stuff just kind of everywhere, so if it sounds a little more echoey, I apologize. Hopefully it's not too distracting. If it's even all that noticeable on your end, I don't know. Today I'm talking about a film that I featured on the channel a little while back when my wife and I watched it for the very first time. That has been gnawing at me pretty much ever since I released it. Even by YouTube standards, Jen and I surprisingly don't get a ton of hate comments for our reviews and our reactions. We get some, but generally speaking, we either get neutral or positive, even on movies that we don't like that the general audiences do, or movies that we really do like that are generally panned by critics. But when it came to Everything Everywhere All at Once, and how our general takeaway was that we enjoyed the movie, but it wasn't the best movie we'd ever seen, we got some real backlash. Of all the movie and TV show reactions that we've done, we received the most insults from this one. I was accused of a ton of things that I never even alluded to in the video, but that's the way it goes. And I normally just let that go, but since it was nominated for however many Academy Awards and ended up bringing in the Best Picture Academy Award, and since it's kind of now back in the cultural spotlight, I think maybe it's time to revisit it. So that's what we're going to do. I hope you're here for a good time, some hot takes, some shots fired, and controversial opinions. A quick heads up and a slight diversion here. I will probably be making a second channel specifically for videos like this in the future. They're a pretty drastic departure from what's normally on the channel. I also know they're not everybody's cup of tea, but they're still topics that I just really want to cover. So when I do make a second channel for this type of stuff, I'll make sure to let everyone know. There's a lot in Everything Everywhere All at Once that I really enjoyed. The biggest train that I'll jump on is all the love for Ke Huy Quan. All aboard. I feel like that guy is just so happy to be making movies, and I generally get a really wholesome feeling from him. His journey from Indiana Jones to this is really unique. It's really fascinating, and his gratefulness for being in the position that he's in is really refreshing in the Hollywood culture that kind of breeds a sense of entitlement. I am so looking forward to his next project, and I will be the first in line. About the movie itself, Everything Everywhere All at Once is both profoundly unique and purposeful. I think that there's such a cultural focus on being unique and different that we're willing to be unique and different at the expense of being useful. If I set a table for a large family gathering and I put all the forks out, but one of those forks, I take the prongs and I bend them in all different directions, that fork will certainly be different and unique among the other ones, but it won't be useful. You won't be able to eat from it. It's different, but it's not useful. This is why I feel like that just because something is different does not necessarily make it good, and certainly does not make it better. Everything Everywhere All at Once is both different and good. There are sequences that are just incredibly magnetic, fascinating to think about, and some that are just downright silly. I think the movie is a lot of fun, and from a strictly audience to art perspective, it is just entertaining. From a filmmaking standpoint, the way that they handled VFX is a profound testament to where filmmaking has progressed. A group of like 6 VFX artists were responsible for more than 500 different visual effects shots in this film. I mean, that is just insane. As far as the cultural response to the movie, both in which I've seen in comments directed towards me and things that I've just seen generally online, it reminds me of kind of that early audience that Rick and Morty had. Do you remember when the online community was so into Rick and Morty being like deep and smart, when in reality they idolized Rick for being the asshole they wish they had the courage of being a drunk, neglectful party animal that's still smarter than everyone else in the room, when in reality they're just a pathetic Jerry. Pew pew pew. Pew, pew. And I love Rick and Morty, but you're kidding yourself if you think that it's a smart man's show. They have some sad and some emotional moments because they're characters that we're invested in for sure, but the show is vastly absurd, which is also the case in Everything Everywhere All at Once. There is something to be said about Everything Everywhere All at Once being like a live-action spin-off of sorts to Rick and Morty, but there is absolutely a similar response people received, not just me, who weren't cheering up and down for Everything Everywhere All at Once as the greatest movie that's come out in the past decade. They're not smart enough to get it. They're too plugged into the Matrix to appreciate real art, bruh. They didn't understand the symbolism, man. And while I can't speak for them, I can give my biggest problem with the movie. And of course, this doesn't take away from the work that was clearly put into the film, the great acting, the clear risks that the filmmakers put into even having the movie made. But for me, there is a fundamental philosophical roadblock. At its core, Everything Everywhere All at Once is a film about optimistic nihilism, which is antithetical to my worldview. And I think that's a reasonable critique as far as appreciating the art of the film without being swayed by its message. Take the Book of Eli, for example. That's a film that's similar in its messaging structure. There's ultimately a sense of struggle and pain, be it external and internal. There's a character trying to figure out their place in the world with help from a slightly wiser other character to help kind of guide them along. The biggest complaint people had about the Book of Eli were the religious undertones at the end of it. They may have liked the post-apocalyptic world stuff. They may have liked Denzel Washington. I mean, who doesn't? They may have loved Gary Oldman as the main antagonist. But as soon as they implied that there is a God or a greater purpose, it crushed the spirit of the movie for those viewers and critics. And to that I say, fair enough. It's antithetical to the atheistic worldview that there is nothing beyond the physical or the self, so it makes sense that you wouldn't agree with the overall message, even if you kind of enjoyed the journey along the way. That's essentially how I feel about Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I think it's fair. The film's biggest philosophical claim, the grand revelation that the movie gives us, is that nothing matters, therefore everything matters. As Wayman put it, if nothing actually matters, then one gets to choose what one does. This can be finding tenderness in spite of grotesque hot dog hands. It can be butt plug trophies, a raccoon with culinary skills, the power of kindness, or just doing taxes and laundry with your loved ones. Now that's all wonderful and sweet, but optimistic nihilism is the band-aid solution to facing your insignificance. The inability to accept the proposed reality that there is no actual meaning to your life. Choosing what one doesn't matter. Finding tenderness in spite of grotesque hot dog fingers doesn't matter. Butt plugs don't matter. Kindness doesn't matter. Mundane tasks that you take subjective enjoyment out of doing with your partner, like laundry and taxes, could not matter less. It's an attempt to have deeper meaning in your life without succumbing to religion. And I get that, I really do. Maybe that is the reality, that there is no greater purpose. Now, it might be personally comforting to think that the small things and the small details in your life matter to you personally, but in the grand scheme of things, they are temporary and forgettable, just like you. You will be forgotten. You do not matter. You are a cosmic accident at best, and you are subject to entropy and decay, and no amount of self-reassurance that the little things in your life actually matter because they matter to you will change the fact that your life has no objective purpose. Optimistic nihilism is for people that are too afraid to embrace actual nihilism. They can't come to grips with their meaningless lives, so they literally have to fabricate meaning to get through to their death because they can't accept reality. And these same people criticize religion. Nietzsche, the father of nihilism and a profound atheist, acknowledges this. He understood that philosophy is not always a tool for happiness, but a tool for accepting reality. Hope in reality is the worst of all evils because it prolongs the torments of man. I can understand wanting to find a worldview without a higher power that gives your life meaning, even if I disagree with the stance. And in the modern era, optimistic nihilism is as close as it gets, even though it's fundamentally contradictory. The closest or realist meaning that one can have is that it means something to me. And for many people, that's better than having no meaning at all, even though it is precisely the same thing. Now, I know I'm giving some hot takes. I'm firing some shots here, I know that, but this is ultimately why the movie's message didn't work for me, even though I enjoyed the journey. In my worldview, you are not a cosmic accident. You were created intentionally and with purpose. Your life and the choices that you make matter outside of just yourself. And the mundane tasks of laundry and taxes really isn't for nothing. I'm convinced of not only God's existence, but his involvement. The evidence of Jesus' divinity, his life, death, and resurrection is compelling, and it's at least worth considering as an alternative worldview. If you want a video where I go more into detail about the evidence for God, I'll refer you to a couple of videos I did a while back when we were watching the Amazon's show The Boys. I did two pretty much all around the evidence for God, Jesus, and all that fun stuff. When it comes to matters of hope and meaning, you'll hardly find anything as substantial as Jesus Christ, both in his message and his historicity. But I hear you over there, watching this video on your phone or on your computer screen. It's all too religious, and you're not the religious type. You're too smart for all that. Forget about the religion. I've said it once, I'll say it again. I would never, ever, ever ask anyone to ever put their faith, trust, loyalty in the institution of Christianity. As many of my atheist friends love to point out, religion is oftentimes used as a tool to hurt or oppress people. The unholy marriage between Christianity and politics in this country will be the wall that separates the believers from the non-believers, and it wasn't the non-believers that put it there. But if you're struggling with finding purpose, wondering what, if any, place you have in the vast cosmos is, if your life is just nothing more than clocking in and clocking out and going from day to day, it is my belief, my worldview, that your life does matter beyond anyone's subjective opinion. That whether you think life ultimately does or doesn't matter, whether you think the small things really do or do not matter, doesn't matter. Your life concretely, realistically, objectively matters. And if you can manage to separate the religious nut jobs, the hateful or bigoted Christians, the holier than thou or self-righteous fanatics that stand between you and sincerely looking towards Jesus Christ as not only a way to find your purpose, but the way to find your purpose, it is my worldview that it is more fulfilling than any philosophy that everything, everywhere, all at once has to offer. But I'm just speaking my truth, man. Look at me speaking my truth. Aren't I so brave for speaking my truth? I'm sure the comment section will be a festering blister, so I can't wait to sift through all that sludge. I know I was a bit more blunt, a little more candid in this video, and I really hope I didn't offend you. I don't even mean that sarcastically. I really hope I didn't offend you. And if you did happen to get to this point in the video, whether you agree with me or disagree with me, I appreciate you for listening in. I love philosophical discussions. I love learning about and dissecting different philosophical points of view than my own, even if I don't end up agreeing with it. So I hope you got some value out of listening to me, even if you didn't agree with anything or everything I said. For now, that is it. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Or not. Does it even really matter?